In my humble opinion, in my humble opinion, Kevin does not deserve to get his kids back. He can act like the victim all he wants in this scenario, but prior to his separation from his wife, which is so weird that he was cool with that to begin with, he was observing his wife denying his children of meals. He watched his wife produce videos such as a 3-year-old being told she couldn't go to preschool because she didn't wake up on time, right? Because Ruby didn't want to do her motherly duties. So Kevin already knew that Ruby was a deficient parent who was unwilling to wake up her children in the morning, make sure that they had a packed lunch to go to school, denying them breakfast if they didn't do whatever the goddamn chores you had for in the morning. You had morning chores for real? Everybody's just waking up. Most of us, as adults, need our coffee in the morning. We're not that functional. We're just like reading things and trying to like wake ourselves up, right? Get our showers done, brush our teeth, and these bitches are like snapping the the whip on their kids. He can't say he didn't know that was already happening before Jody was involved, because Jody was involved for the last 2 or 3 years, potentially. Eve is 10, right? But Ruby was already posting content when Eve was 3 years old, talking about how I'm just not going to take you to preschool today because you didn't wake up. Because she doesn't want to do her motherly duties. This is a burden to her to actually have to take care of these kids. And Kevin was totally down with this, did not have a problem with this, totally wants to reconcile. And until 2 weeks ago, when he found out there were lacerations bone deep on his son. And I don't even know if I believe that. I think he probably still wants to reconcile. I think he's just trying to save himself from legal liability at this point.
Jody's doing during these sessions, I'm like, my gosh, again, what a vile person, right? To instruct families to do this. It's like someone, again, these are just my opinions. I don't know personally her whatnot or her motivations, but it just seems like somebody who's so miserable within themselves, they want to make everyone else that. And also a power dynamic. Look at the level of power that people are handing over to her. Okay, I'm the problem. I'll move into an apartment. I won't contact my family. Who says that, right? Can you imagine if you've ever been to a therapist or any form of that? Can you imagine them telling you that? Like, oh yeah, quit talking to your kids and stuff? Come on.
Kester does say before his wife's...
By the way, somebody dropped a comment. I did not approve it. Somebody dropped a comment on my channel saying that Paul's content is copyrighted. He's never come after me, okay? And being real, React videos are not, that's like fair use, right? So if I'm reacting to the content that he's bringing to the table, that is, don't come on my channel and spread hate, please.
Arrest, Kevin Franke received counseling from Hildebrand.
During the separation, Kevin was attending men's groups that were facilitated by Jody, and during those groups, he was being downgraded and diminished, and told how bad he was, and that he needed to repent, and that the best way to.
I'm sorry, but okay. I have some level of patience and some level of empathy for the men that got involved in this program, because they were probably told by their bishops to go to Jody. But at the same time, I'm like, come on, dudes. You're supposed to be men. You're supposed to be protecting your families. This is the most emasculating bullshit I've ever seen. How did you let this happen to yourself? Like, why didn't you, after like the first couple of sessions, say, nope, we are not participating in this anymore, right? Like, it should have been fairly obvious to you that something nefarious was going on. Okay.
Repent was to not infect his family with his problems, and so that's why you need to stay away. He wasn't the only one in those men's groups that was undergoing exactly what he was undergoing at her suggestion and recommendation.
A men's group run by Jody Hildebrand. Can't roll my eyes hard enough at that.
Just so I get a better idea of what these men groups are, would that be, what would that entail? They're going to like a group and kind of talking about things? Who are the people who are kind of like laying down the law, so to speak?
Jody.
Oh, she enjoyed every second of that, telling a group of men what to do, and that they're horrible. To me, it just seems like that's what her MO was. Like, she had this thing against men, and that it was like, I'm going to destroy them and their families' lives.
Yeah.
And they were Zoom meetings. I don't think they ever met together personally, even though maybe a sponsor of someone would meet personally, but sporadically.
And a Zoom meeting at that, right? You wouldn't even meet in person. I'm just like, my gosh, but this is the thing. So much power was given over to this woman. And remember, other interviews and whatnot that we've watched is if you question this stuff, she would start destroying you. Clearly she did anyways, right? It was almost like no matter what, once you were in the clutches of this, you were getting destroyed and emptying your bank account in the process. Yeah. Always follow the money.
I asked whether Kevin wants to speak, and your reply was interesting to me in that you said Kevin does want to speak, just not now.
Correct.
So, if not now, when?
When the dust has kind of settled. He just doesn't want to jeopardize. He doesn't want to say something.
You know what? That's just even a bigger indicator that this dude was weak. And that she's able to prey, Jody is able to prey on weak men. That's really sad. You have all these kids. You obviously bred too much because you don't want to take charge of them. You are not even checking in on them. And they're getting highly abused. And you're like, I don't know. I wasn't there. I was told not to be there. Oh my God. Kevin does not deserve his kids back. He was watching this happen before it escalated to the point of bondage. He was watching the meals being taken away. He saw that happen. For real. He saw the threats of toys being torn apart. He saw the fact that his wife was not taking his daughter to preschool because she didn't want to perform her motherly duties. He saw this happen. because it was all broadcast on their YouTube channel. There's no way he didn't see this.
We've committed to the court. We're not going to disparage any of the family. And Kevin's gone above and beyond that. He's not only not disparaged anyone, he's reaching out to try to bring this family closer together and to kind of heal wounds.
Now, this is a very tricky situation he's in because, just like his lawyer said, he's trying to get the kids back, so he has to be very delicate with what he says, what story he says. So I don't blame him. I want to be getting out there and talking myself either. Everything would be done through a lawyer, and he's going to have to spin a certain narrative because, again, if they're in custody with this and all this stuff has come out, they're going to be looking back at this stuff over 8 passengers and being like, what about this? Your child, left her lunch. Did you know about that? What about this? Your wife, you didn't provide a bedroom for one of your sons for 6 months. Did you know about that? They're going to start questioning all this stuff.
Yeah, and what did the kids do that you needed to pile up a lot of the things that mattered to them, including your son's homework, and say they needed to earn it back by paying for it with dollars? Were you paying them for their contributions to this YouTube channel? I don't think you were you? Okay, so they have to pay you back or do, in Kevin's words, an equivalent value chore to earn their items back. Why? That was his homework. He had to turn that shit in. Oh my God.
Right, and that's where it might become a little tricky. Now, as we know, okay, when the sad thing about these situations is, number one, is the children at the center of it, right? Families are destroyed, and the children are at the center of it. They have a whole life ahead of them. They didn't ask for this stuff to be done to them, right? They are at the whim of the adults in their lives, and these are the choices that the adults made. I'm especially thinking of Jody right here, but for Ruby and possibly Kevin to allow, again, we don't know how much Kevin knew about what was going on specifically with the kids and Jody in that dynamic of when he was gone, but especially Ruby to allow someone like Jody to make these decisions and watch after the kids and clearly treat them this way is absolutely inappropriate and criminal, right? So only time will tell. But when the children are thrust into this and they're put into different, homes and CPS gets involved, you see how many times we see what happens in those scenarios. It's not good in any direction.
Well, more than likely they've been placed with a family member. But it would be difficult, I think, for CPS at this point to determine which family members are actually safe. I don't think Kevin is. Honestly, I think Sherry should get custody.
It's a very delicate situation. These kids have been horribly brainwashed, indoctrinated, and it's scary.
Brainwashed by who?
Jody.
Do you believe that Ruby was brainwashed by Jody?
Yes. And I say that because everyone, the focus has been on Kevin. Where was he? Why was he absent? How does that all happen? So he was doing that at Ruby's direction, who I think was being directed by Jody. This is the way that you've got to repair your marriage and repair your family. So they were all sort of kind of being manipulated, and this is just my opinion, by Jody. And I think she knew what she was doing, and it was causing significant damage. And so when Kevin's critics are out there saying, where was he? He was acting at the direction of what he thought was a competent.
Okay, so do you think that that's a responsible parent attorney there? That they are susceptible to brainwashing and can get involved in a cult, and therefore they should have their children back? If you're that weak-minded and you already have a history of accepting abuse in your home, should you get your children back? I think the answer is no.
Mental health care provider and advisor, and to me the better question is, what kind of mental health care provider would advise a family and a husband and wife and a husband and children, or a father and children, that this can repair your family if you just stay away from each other?
Now, again, this whole thing of like the level of brainwashing that was going on in this narrative and whatnot will be very interesting to see how the evidence plays out with it, because I have no doubt, again, my first thought is, okay, what have the kids been told and exposed to? Number one, we see the videos that how Ruby was in these videos with them. Then you get to the point of all the stuff we're finding out with Jody, right? So it's like, okay, how much psychological, physical, and emotional damage has been done to these kids, and how do we start getting them into services and whatnot? Remember, the one of the older kids had posted that Instagram photo of the cop outside her home, saying finally when the cops were coming and stuff like this. So clearly, this is an ongoing issue for a while.
And he was desperate to have that come back together, but it was Jody's intervention that prevented that, and it was manipulating him, saying, if you just do this, if you just overcome your greed and your selfishness and your narcissism, you will get your family back together, but you got to stay away and you got to repent.
The thing that makes me so disgusted with the hypocrisy of this is because these are the exact things she was doing and grifting the whole time. You know what I mean? Like her own narcissism, her own greed. It only lined her pockets to convince these men that they were the reason their families were destroyed, and to separate them, and you have to do this, and oh, by the way, cough, cough, it's a couple of grand a month. I mean, come on. Like the lowest of low.
But there's a lot to be told. There's a lot of chapters in this book, and the more I dig into it, the more I've said this before and I'll say it again, I think that Jody is in the middle of all this, and I describe her as an onion with an octopus inside.
They're going to try and make some sort of deal to have like Jody be the fall guy here, which is they both deserve life in prison at this point for what they've done to these poor kids. And Kevin deserves some jail time too, even if he wasn't involved in the last 14 months. He knew. He was being, they were all being counseled by Jody. He was well aware of this going on, and he didn't stand up as a man and say, you know what? If we need family counseling, we got to go to somebody else because this doesn't make any sense, right? Oh, God. I hope Sherry gets custody.
More layers you peel back about Jody's life and connections. Every time you peel back a layer, an octopus tentacle comes springing out.
So Jody is an octopus. Okay, she's an octopus. We got it. She's an octopus. But I mean, he's right. It's just literally next level, but isn't that the way these cases seem these days? Where it's like, I mean, look at Lori Daybell, Letitia, I mean, you name it, right? Where you just peel these layers back and you're like, what? It gets worse and worse and worse. And this level of just abuse that goes so deep. And that's what we're seeing with this right here, where it's like, I'm just shocked at the stories that people are coming forth with. Now, also, what's good with the stories people are coming forth with is this seems to be what's going to finally take Jody down, because people are literally frightened of this woman, right? And it just seems so funny to me. Not funny, but, peculiar, and not even peculiar. I don't know what the word is, but it's, I guess, good that this is being exposed, because the level of victimization, I mean, this feels culty. We were brainwashed, we were this, I mean, this feels very Waco, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm just like, this girl needed to be taken down a while ago, but people are petrified.
Well, and also the Mormon Church was backing her up. They need to make a statement. The Mormon Church needs to make a statement denouncing her methods because, yeah, it was a cult.
Right? So what we're going to have to do is just see. I think that we'll obviously get our answers because eventually we're going to find out if he gets custody of the children. And what needs to happen is whatever's best for the children. Wherever they can safely go, that they will not be exposed to this level of abuse, manipulation, psychological, physical, all that stuff again, because they've already gone through that. Now, obviously, we don't want them to then get thrown in some system where they're shuffled around and their lives become even worse. Only time will tell. But I'm curious, what do you think of the Kevin story? Again, if you're still here, first of all, thank you. But I view it in the two contexts of, okay, so the kids go away, there's no contact, you're going based on what, Jody says, so your wife is doing all this crazy stuff that you allegedly have no concept of, but then what about the stuff prior? Were you privy to all this behaviors and stuff? I would think so. Just like I said, it's on a YouTube channel. It was their channel. It was their livelihood. You know what I mean? So the content was made around this bizarre parenting stuff that was a little bit out there. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comment section. Now, usually I say Roscoe would ask you to drop some sofas there, and he did just telepathically hit me up, and he was like, hey, Dad, tell him to drop some sofas. So go on, drop some sofas in the comments for Roscoe.
All you dads out there who abandon your children by the slightest pushback from mom, who's obviously, you have a problem with mom, right? Your relationship's not going very well. These are still your kids. You can't just be dropping off the planet when your relationship doesn't work out. Not cool.